Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 2024 IPS School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Eric Weddle. I'm the managing editor for the education team at WFYI and WFYI Public Media, Chalkbeat Indiana, in the Indianapolis Public Library welcome you to this event. We have partnered with the library hosting this for every election cycle for the past 10 years. So it's been a great partnership, and we appreciate you all showing up tonight. So thanks to the candidates for attending and being willing to answer questions to help educate our voters. And as you enter tonight, there is a slip of paper upstairs with a QR code where you can get access to voter guides and question and answers from all the IPS candidates, as well as school board candidate voter guides for Marion County, and also for the governor's race, Congress, Senate, and other state officials. So tonight, one journalist from WFYI and one journalist from Chalkbeat Indiana will moderate the conversation. And before I introduce the moderators, I want to just give you guys a few tips on how to be quiet and listen and enjoy the evening. So if you haven't already, please silence your cell phones, which I have not done yet. So I will be the first to do that. This event is being recorded. It will be available on YouTube after it ends. It is streaming right now, and so you can watch it again after it ends. We will also be adding a Spanish translation closed caption in the coming days to this broadcast. Please do not disrupt the candidates when they're speaking. Please do not disrupt each other when people are talking. And candidates, please do not make any personal attacks against one another. We're glad you're all here. Thank you very much for coming. And now I want to introduce MJ Slaby and Sydney Dauphiné.
Hi, I'm Sydney Dauphiné with WFYI, and I'm here with MJ Slaby, Bureau Chief for Chalkbeat Indiana. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're here tonight to discuss the upcoming Indianapolis Public Schools Board of Commissioners race. There are 7 elected members on the IPS board. 2 are elected at large and represent the entire district, and 5 represent specific neighborhood communities within districts. You can see a map of those districts on the screen behind me. Maybe. Tonight, we're hearing from 8 candidates who are running for 4 seats, Districts 1, 2, and 4, as well as 1 at-large seat. And as all of you probably know, these elected positions are important. Board members are responsible for overseeing budgets, approving curriculum, and voting on policies like school closures or charter school partnerships. They also oversee the superintendent.
Thanks, Sydney. Tonight's forum starts with each candidate introducing themselves, followed by questions from myself and Sydney, questions from the audience, and lastly, closing statements. The questions that Sydney and I ask are questions selected by the teams at WFYI and Chalkbeat, as well as questions that were submitted in advance from attendees like you all. Now here are the ground rules for the candidates. Please address the questions we ask in your responses. We've got limited time together, so we're asking you to keep your responses to less than 1 minute. You're allowed to finish your sentence, but after that, we'll lovingly cut you off. So you've been warned. And we can ensure that all of you have equitable amounts of time. There will be a few rapid response type questions throughout, so those will be 15 seconds, but we promise it's 1 phrase, 1 sentence, you'll be able to do it. And candidates will also have 30 seconds for those introductions and closing statements. For our audience, if you'd like to write down a question, please look for volunteers walking around the sides with note cards and pens. You can raise your hand and they'll find you.
So we're going to start by giving the candidates 30 seconds to introduce themselves. You can mention things like which seat you're running for, or if you have children in the district, why you're running, things like that. We'll start with Kenneth Allen and go down the line from there.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Chalkbeat, WFYI, the library, for hosting this event. It's good to be here. My name is Kenneth Allen. I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the board vice president. Was elected during the last presidential election. I'm running for re-election. The most important title to me is father. I do father 4 children now. I'm a husband, community advocate, and have been very active in this community for the last 20 years. over the last 3 years, I've been fortunate to support the Rebuilding Stronger plan, as well as visit every school in the district, and excited about today's conversation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carrie Harris, and I am a proud Indiana Hoosier and also a proud Crispus Attucks Tiger, a part of the IPS system graduate. I have a master's degree in education from the Urban Education Program at IUPUI. My husband and I have 4 children. My husband is also a proud IPS alum. He graduated from Arsenal Tech. So I've been attending IPS school board meetings since 2017 and participating in their community events for over the last 8 years. I am really concerned about the district, and I'm running for at-large. Carrie Harris.
Good evening. Again, thank you for having me. I'm Deandra Thompson. I'm your IPS school board candidate at large. And I spent my career working with families and students and building schools, and for families who really crave a better educational opportunity for their children, and that's what I believe I can bring to the IPS school district. I also am a mom of a wonderful 7-year-old boy, and so I'm glad to be here and have this discussion with you today.
My name is Alyssa Impink, and I'm your candidate for District 4. Born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, I've lived in District 4 for 10 years. As a teacher in various schools, I work closely with families to build trust. With 3 children in this district, I have a personal stake in the outcomes of our policies. The decisions that we make will impact my family just as they will yours. I believe that every child deserves the chance to thrive in our district, and that starts with a community-driven approach. I'm eager to answer your questions, and I hope to earn your vote.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Gail Cosby. I'm running for District 2, which is the near east side, kind of following Massachusetts Avenue toward Pendleton Pike till we reach Lawrence Township. I am a lifelong resident of the east side. I have a doctoral degree in urban education studies. I'm a professor of education at Ivy Tech Community College, and I spend my days training our future teachers. I previously served 1 term on the IPS school board from 2012 to 2016, and I've been brought out of retirement because I feel like the district has reached a critical juncture, and if we don't do something this election cycle, our educational landscape will look vastly different.
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Hassan Rashid. I'm the District 2 candidate. I'm a father of 3, a husband, and I'm a local businessman and community advocate. I know the importance of education and that education can pull kids out of poverty. In my community advocacy, I've been able to put on a music festival that we were able to give scholarships away to graduating seniors, and to see that impact and to know that if I had the opportunity to impact thousands of kids and help their education, I knew I couldn't pass up on running for District 2, and hopefully I'll get your vote and become the District 2 Commissioner. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alan Schoaf, and I'm the District 1 candidate looking for your vote. A strong public school advocate, the 12 years of experience that my family's had through IPS and witnessed in the different schools. I think that one of the #1 issues that we need to resolve is providing some stability in the district. I think that's the next natural step for rebuilding stronger. I think we need to look at the next plan on how to stabilize our schools, and I'm also a strong arts advocate. I believe that all the schools should be enriched with arts, and that is a proven method for academic achievement.
Hi, my name is Ashley Thomas. Let me move this closer. Ashley Thomas. I am also a candidate for IPS District 1. I'm a proud mother of 3 beautiful children. One of my children do attend an IPS school currently, and all of my children have benefited from a foundational education in their elementary years up through 6th grade to receive an amazing education due to some of the advocacy from commissioners, leaders in schools, and educators and community and parents collaborating together. So I'm really excited about what role I get to play to really take a stand and make sure that every child has access to an equitable education across the district, and I truly believe in the district. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now we're going to move on to the Q&A portion. So some of our questions will be for all of the candidates. Some of them will be for half of you. So Sydney and I will list the order ahead of each question for the candidates. So our first question, however, is for all of you. And we're going to start with Carrie Harris, go down the line, and then end with Kenneth Allen. And the question is, so there's a spotlight on how and when IPS works with charter schools in the city. What would make a partnership with a charter school successful to you, and what results would you want to see? You each have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much for the question. One of the things about working together with anyone is to make sure that each group receives something from that. So if the charter school is going to bring their ideas into IPS, it would be a wonderful match, because guess what? All of the students would be able to benefit from that. One of the things that I see is that we have different divisions within what's happening with our charter schools. But I think if we could work together, we would be able to educate our children so much better. Thank you.
So I believe that charter school, I believe that not one size fits all students. And so I believe in different school types so that our students can get the best education that serves them. And then I believe that we should definitely work with our legislature to make sure all schools are equitably funded. And so with those two things in mind, I believe that we can work together, collaborate on different things, including curriculum design, tutoring services, transportation. We can really work together and make sure that all students get the best education that they deserve.
Can you all repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. What would make a partnership with a charter school successful to you, and what results would you want to see?
Absolutely. So as commissioner, I intend to lead with a student outcomes mindset. I believe that our IPS school system exists to do many things, but the most it exists to improve student outcomes. That's my top priority. So if the district is going to go into a partnership with a charter school, I want to ensure that first that partnership is that partnership maintains the vision and values of the community. That's the first outcome I would hope to be able to see, in addition to positive student outcomes. I also just want to ensure again that it is a partnership that is one of vision and values of the community.
Okay. Regarding charter schools, I see where we're 20 years into the charter school era, if you will, in Indianapolis. And I believe that after 20 years, we've had enough time to see what works and what does not. So as commissioner, I would propose that we look at what works and do some studies around that, gather some data, and use that as a platform for a redesign of our innovation network school process. Charter schools, public schools, both operate off of taxpayer dollars. So at the end of the day, my job as commissioner is to make sure that we're properly governing your funding, your tax money that you put into the pot. And we have to be very mindful of how that money is allocated. The Innovation Network schools receive funding from us, and so we need to address this issue of oversaturation of charter schools, which we know is an issue. The Indiana State Charter School Board administrators have noted there are too many charter schools, and it is time to address this issue.
I think more importantly than what kind of school that it is it a successful school, or are kids learning? Are our kids receiving a quality education? If that's not happening, it really doesn't matter what kind of school it is, and that needs to be our focus. Right now, we've got 78% of kids in IPS reading below their grade level, and that's an area that we have to improve upon immediately. So the focus needs to be more on, how can we make that partnership improve literacy? How can we make equitable schools across the board? And how can we make sure that everyone is getting the education that they deserve as an IPS student?
I think the premise of the question is innovation schools working with the district. And I think that the first part of that is we need to do a fair and honest assessment of the schools that we already have in our portfolio. I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think people have the wrong idea. They think certain schools are doing better than they are. You know, KIPP is one of our flagship innovation schools, been around for a long time. We were just in their high school the other day, but the truth is they have as many or more suspensions for 320 students as Arsenal Tech does for 2,300 students. So I think we need to look at school environment. You know, they have 0% 11th graders that passed both the reading and math portion of the SAT. So, you know, why are we bragging about something that's really not being effective for us in the long run? Again, we just have to do a fair and honest assessment, and I think we also need to look at contracts, because I think that the contracts are written to benefit the businesses, and I think that the district needs to assess also the leadership costs, because it seems to me all this additional administrative costs more money. Sorry.
Yeah, so I believe that we really have to assess, like, how are we defining a great school? When we talk about academic outcomes, that's one thing. When we talk about I Learn, we talk about I Read, but that's all standardized assessments. Like, we're really needing to talk about what does the culture of the school look like as well. How are they engaging community? Because many times I hear a lot of folks, like, we talk about community schools, and then when we start talking about what type of school and what does the community want, we're not engaging families and community, being intentional about that, right? Like, not just saying that they're just not gonna show up, but making some intentional decisions on meeting them where they're at to really get their buy-in on, like, what is their vision for a great school as well. Because I don't believe that any school could be successful without really truly bringing all visionaries to the table across the board. So yes, we're talking about academic outcomes. What does that look like when we're measuring a great school? But I also think when we talk about the innovation partnership, we also get to gut check how can we leverage some of the great things that are happening in some of our innovation and our traditional schools, and make sure that some of our schools within the IPS district traditionally get to grow there too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to work with several of the ministers in town when a young man by the name of Brandon Johnson was beat by IMPD, and we created a campaign that summer called Stop, Pause, and Think, and I think that is most relevant right now. I think we need to stop our partnerships, pause, really engage the community to see if this is something they want to continue going forward with.
Great, thank you. So our next question is for Gail, Hassan, Ashley, and Alan, please, in that order. So in recent years, the state has been prioritizing literacy, such as through the science of reading, but the resources and tutoring needed to improve literacy requires funding. If elected, how would you approach funding literacy supports, and what cuts would you be willing to make? You have 60 seconds.
Literacy is important. At Ivy Tech, we also have to deal with the science of reading. We teach the teachers who go on to teach the science of reading, and so I understand it from that vantage point. It is not cheap and it is not free, but it is very important that we fund this important initiative. I think that as commissioner, my priority would be to reevaluate the number of charter partners that we have. As mentioned before, we have a proliferation of charter schools. I'm not anti-charter. There are some great charter schools, but we need to find out which ones those are so we can support them fully and keep them, and stop the charter school churn. The opening and the closing of these charter schools that last 1 or 2 years needs to stop, and they need to not be funded. We can redirect those funds into important initiatives like literacy.
As I stated earlier, 78% of our kids are reading below grade level, and in order to address that and rectify that, I think we need to have high dosage tutoring taking place. We need to look at private partnerships with a lot of the private firms that we have here in the city. Use those resources to help fund these tutors. We need to partner with the local colleges and universities and making sure that we're using all resources that are available. Anybody that we can put into the pipeline that would be able to help these kids with tutoring, is a must, and I think the private sector is where we need to look at, so we're not putting any more strain on the citizens of the community.
Well, the science of reading is a mandate by the state, and I think that the state should be held accountable for funding the initiatives. High-dosage tutoring, it's just kind of a new language for things that we already know. That's a reading intervention, and we know that the best form of tutoring is in the school. It's better than at home. It's better than online for sure. And I think that we need to push the state back to fund the mandates that they put on us. That was the question, right? How to fund it?
Yeah, so high dosage tutoring, how do we fund it? I definitely believe that science of reading is in practice. Most of the elders that I get to experience in education are all like, well, this is what we've always done. Like, we're just putting different names on it, but this is what we've always done. We've always taught phonics, phonemic awareness, et cetera, vocab. It's always been really important when we talk about literacy. But like, how do we fund it? I think it's really important for us to talk about how we are partnering with the city for some of our city budget and really getting creative. So when we talk about high dosage tutoring, there's not just one, the mechanism doesn't always matter. And I think we get to get really creative, especially when we talk about high dosage tutoring and pushing in. It doesn't always have to look the same way. So like, how are we partnering with the arts? You know, when we talk about literacy and being able to tap into some of the city's budget for the art, or some of the city's budget when it comes to education, or some of the state's budget when it comes to the arts, and get creative to marry two really amazing things that get to happen together. So ultimately, I think we've got to really think outside of the box. And if I am the commissioner on the school board, I would be ready to just be boots on the ground and make sure we can pull in any funding that we could and get creative to make sure that our children are learning literacy in every creative way, in homes and in school. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question is a question that was submitted in advance from one of our readers. And the order will be Alyssa, Kenneth, Carrie, and then Deandra. And the question is, when you visit a school, or in the future when you're visiting a school, what would you look for? And if you don't find what you're looking for, what steps would you take to resolve it? 60 seconds.
When I walk into a school, the first thing I look for sometimes is what I call organized chaos. Organized chaos is something that I believe our educators understand. It's essentially when students are being authentic, they're being loud, they're being proud in the classroom, and multiple things are happening at the same time. There are students working on one side of the classroom with an educator or a teacher, and they're learning. Then you look to the other side of the classroom, and there's another group of students doing something that's engaging. So when I walk into a classroom and I'm able to see that, that's something that I would like to be able to see when I step inside of a classroom. Now, organized chaos at some point has to calm down, right? And you have to be able to have a formative assessment to ensure that, yes, your kids are having fun and they're learning and they're growing. But again, I mentioned student outcomes at the beginning of my last statement, and that's something that is incredibly important. Our kids have to walk into our classrooms to receive that equitable education, but also ensure that they're having fun. So when I walk into a classroom and I'm able to see that it's loud and that students are moving and teachers have the support and resources that they need, that's something that I look for and will look for when I walk into all of our schools.
Thank you again for this question. I've had the privilege over the last 3 years of visiting every school within our district, as well as some of our innovation schools, and the joy has been, one, seeing young people learning in the classroom, seeing teachers excited to be back in the classroom and teach. One of the greatest joys I've witnessed as I visited the schools, particularly starting this school year, was the result of the generosity of the taxpayers sitting in this room to see young people who did not have access to the arts, who did not have access to musical instruments, opening up a musical instrument, a clarinet, a flute, a drum set, and just having the pride, knowing they don't have to deal with hand-me-down instruments, but they have an opportunity to be engaged with great musical instruments that will help add to their learning experience.
Oh, thank you for the question. Actually, I was just in a school yesterday, a number of schools on yesterday, And it was just wonderful to be able to go into the school and see a community. So when you first got there, you saw the person who said, hello, how are you here? How can we help you? That's how all schools should be. They should be inviting. They should be open. They should really have parents in them. One of the things that we need to learn how to do is get our parents engaged in the building. Of course, we have to make sure we have it secure for that purpose, but that is one of the things we need to do. The other thing is that teachers, if they need the help, we need to make sure that it's there for them. All of the time, having fun and education don't always mesh in a classroom. You have to remember the teacher is one, and she may have more than 30 students. And so we have to make sure that we are providing the necessary tools and resources in the school for those teachers to be successful for education to occur. Thank you.
Yes, that's a great question. So one of the things in early childhood is not what we see, but what we hear. That is so important. And in all the schools that I've worked at over the 20 years of my career experience, as the culture and the environment, seeing where the children work and what does that work look like is important. What do you hear? You hear children talking. If I ever walk into a school that's very quiet, I'm a little concerned. So it's very important that I hear children talking to adults, because in early childhood, we know that's a very important relationship, the children engaging with adults. And then just the proof of learning, seeing it on bulletin boards, in the classroom, seeing what children learn is very important. So those would be the things that I would listen, hear, and see when I walk into classrooms.
Great, thank you. So this next question is for everyone, and we ask you to keep your answer under 15 seconds. And we're gonna start with Deandra, and then go down the line, and then back to Kenneth, and then Carrie. Does that make sense? So please list your endorsements.
I'm endorsed by Stand for Children.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Please list your endorsements.
Please list my endorsements. I'm endorsed by an organization called Run for Something. I'm endorsed by IEA, which is our district's teachers union. I'm endorsed by Stand for Children. I'm endorsed by RISE, and those are my endorsements.
I'm endorsed by the Indiana State Teachers Association. I'm endorsed by the Indianapolis Education Association. I'm endorsed by the AFL-CIO Labor Union, and I'm endorsed by the Indianapolis Educational Justice Coalition.
I am endorsed by Benita Moore, the current District 2 Commissioner. I'm endorsed by Councilwoman Maggie Lewis of District number 5. I'm endorsed by Keith Graves, Councilman for District number 9. I'm endorsed by John Bartlett, State Representative.
I am endorsed by Indiana Education Association. I'm endorsed by Indiana Education Justice Coalition, Indiana State Teachers Association, and the AFL, Central Indiana AFL-CIO, and the 10 neighbors that signed me up to do this at the last minute.
I'm endorsed by Stand for Children Indiana and Rise Indy.
I'm endorsed by the Indiana Ohio Regional Carpenters Association.
I'm endorsed by Parents Across America. I'm endorsed by Du Bois Productions, and I'm endorsed by the Indianapolis Education Justice Coalition.
Thank you. So one more rapid response question. So, and we'll start with Alyssa and then go down and loop around like we just did. What is one issue in the district that you think does not get enough priority or attention? One issue.
One issue in the district that doesn't get enough priority or attention, I would lean into saying language justice. It intersects with literacy. It intersects with our community. So that is one priority that I would feel does not get as much attention.
I feel that we need to pay closer attention to our supposed partnerships in the district. I feel that a lot of our so-called partnerships need to be reevaluated, especially on a fiscal basis.
I think that our relationship with the state legislature is very important, and we have to reevaluate that, try to mend those fences. That's the arm that funds us, and we need to be able to access that and reap the benefits of that good relationship.
I believe that the number one priority is probably the front lines in the classrooms. We need to support the teachers with more language supports for our migrant children that come here and then they struggle to teach. I think we need more supports. They just need teaching assistants in the classroom. I've been in several classrooms and the teachers are just overwhelmed trying to manage 30-something kids.
I think parent and community engagement around transparency in the district doesn't get enough attention, being intentional to meet those families and community where they're at, to really be transparent about the state of the district consistently.
I would say mental health supports, particularly coming out of a pandemic. I think we could put more emphasis and efforts on making sure we have resources available for both our students and our staff in a post-pandemic society.
I think that one of the most important things about the district that we need to really pay attention to is the partnerships along with charter schools, and actually looking at how we can put a moratorium on that and get an assessment of where the district actually is with the educational progress for our students.
I think the most important thing that is needs attention is early childhood and pre-K options expansion in IPS school district and partnering with early childhood providers, because we can't talk about poor reading scores without talking about pre-K.
Great, thank you so much. So our next question is for Alan, Ashley, Hassan, and Gail, please in that order. And it was a submission from a community member. They wrote that there's been a lot of fighting and disruptions in the middle schools that are affecting students' feelings of safety and their ability to learn. Do you support more funding for security personnel and staff that can help appropriately address these issues? And what are the resources or actions can the board take to help ensure students and teachers can feel safe? You have 60 seconds.
Oh, I think that this kind of ties into my last answer. I think we need to provide more supports in the classrooms. I think middle school especially, we experienced a situation where an inexperienced elementary team came in and took on a K through 8, and they really didn't have any idea how to manage middle school children differently. I think that the issues at Broadwell were extremely predictable, and I think the district misstepped by not providing more resources, and I mean personnel, not necessarily law enforcement personnel. I'm not a big fan of that. I think if you have the right people in the room, it's less about police force and it's more about just engaging kids as adults.
Yeah, I would say I would be supportive of more support in the school, support staff in the school, but I also would really be mindful of us talking about having more security in the schools, because many times when we cause trauma with disruption and we pull folks together from different, students together from different communities, we didn't bring them in to the vision, and something is happening to them. A lot of times the responses of however they respond is like what we get to experience. But how can we bring in more mental health supports? How can we make sure that we're bringing more folks in from the community that the kids see on a regular basis to help with that transition and the cultural development in the space, so that folks can really learn one another? Because sometimes we're throwing security and we're believing that the police are going to make the change. I think there's a place for police, but do I believe that they're always, the security is going to be the solution to those type of problems? No, we get to be intentional about how are we going to show up for these kids and really truly do some community building and make sure that when we're in transition that we're being intentional and not just having a great plan, but being intentional about the implementation of the plans.
Yes, safety and security are number one, and we need to have a community environment where everyone feels welcome, I think. As we have police and security come in, the kids need to know that they're friends and that they're there to provide safety for them so we can get on with the business of education. We need to have mental health support. If kids are getting bullied, all kids need to feel inclusive no matter what their gender, their race, whatever their background is. They need to know that in the school, this is a safe haven. And all partners in that school need to provide that feeling. And so we have to have discussions. We have to have community development that makes that apparent and at the forefront.
As a teacher of teachers, I believe that at the cornerstone of any disciplinary problems or issues that we see in the school, it boils down to an issue of relationship building between teachers, staff, communities, and the students that we're educating. So I believe that as a district, IPS would benefit from providing district-wide training so that all staff and all teachers are on the same page in regard to issues like providing social emotional learning skills to our students, providing teachers with the skill set to manage classrooms effectively. And this should be something that is pretty standard. I would love to walk into any IPS building and see the same types of procedures enacted in all buildings and all classrooms. Social emotional learning skills are incredibly important. We teach things like empathy. We teach children how to treat each other, and this goes a long way toward managing behavioral issues. I think that heavy police presence can be traumatizing. I'm not in favor of putting heavy police presence in all of IPS buildings. That space is for educating, not for monitoring students with the police.
Thank you. Our next question is for Carrie, Deandra, Kenneth, and then Alyssa. And it is, so students' mental health and experiences outside of the classroom impacts them in the classroom. As a board member, what is your role in supporting student mental health, and how will you approach it? You have 60 seconds, and please remember to keep an eye on our timekeeper.
Thank you so much for the question. Mental health is a big issue in our society nowadays. So there are a lot of varying reasons for the issues that our children bring to the school. Okay, so one of the things that we have to realize and start to look at, I think, outside of the mental health piece is what's happening at these children's homes. How do we really help people become more reliable and able to live and move and have a well-being? So one of the things that's happening in this city that I think the community doesn't know, IPS doesn't make policy. The State House does. And so what we need to make sure is that we are making sure that the State House makes policies for mental health that can be supported in the school system of IPS or any school system here in the state. And so we've got to build that relationship so that we can do those things better.
Yes, mental health is very important to me. My dad is a mental health professional, and even in early childhood, we've seen some issues in mental health recently with our younger kiddos. And I would say that as a board member, it's our job to set the vision for the district and include mental health in our strategy and ensure that we can assist our students and come alongside the administration to make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing and assisting those students and teachers with the needs that they need, make sure those needs in mental health are met. But it's a part of, alongside literacy, that would be the next number 2 on my list to tackle as far as mental health is concerned. And I believe that we do need to work with our legislatures so that we can get the appropriate funding to make sure that we're appropriately handling mental health issues and concerns.
This issue is extremely important to me as a father of parenting children during the pandemic and post-pandemic. having buried my mother, both my grandparents, and my sister. Before I turned 30, I even struggled with my own mental health issues. So it's very important. I know our students and our staff struggle with it. As a board member, I think it is my responsibility to do two things. One is to advocate to our legislature for more resources. During the last 3 years, I've advocated down the State House so that we can get additional resources. And when elected again, I plan to continue to do that. I also think that it's critically important that we work with our local elected officials, our city councilors, and our mayor's office to allocate resources to help filter some of the costs as it relates to mental health resources for our students.
So when I transitioned to teaching in 2015, I wanted to specifically obtain a special education license because I knew that I would have the qualities to be able to walk into a classroom and be trauma informed. When I became a teacher, I knew the importance of ensuring that we were trauma informed. And ensuring that our students, and ensuring that our teachers taught with a lens with social and emotional learning. One of the things that I continue to value is that all children, no matter their background, whether that's background in their home or within their experience, have access to an equitable education. So as a commissioner, I will hold extremely high expectations of our administration to ensure that all children, no matter if they battle with mental health issues, not only just their children, but as well as their families. If their families battle with mental health needs as well, all of our educators are trauma informed, and that we're all leaning into supporting our children with that social and emotional lens.
Thank you. So this is going to be another rapid response question. You have 15 seconds, and we're going to start with Gail. What is one thing that you want to learn about the district?
One thing that I want to learn about the district. Well, I feel like since I've served a previous term, my answer may be a little different. I have 4 years of prior experience. One thing that I think I would like to learn a bit more about would be to explore the relationship between the legislators and how we can build better relationships there, and do some lobbying on behalf of IPS and just really be at the forefront of their mind when it comes to the laws that are passed.
I'd like to learn more about the parent and school engagement and how we can make that a better partnership so we can impact these students and give them a better education.
I think one thing I'd like to learn is how many actual seats we have in our school buildings, and so we can really look at the community and address where the opportunities are to serve families better.
I'd like to learn more about the allocation of the dollars that the district is already receiving to figure out how to work smarter when it comes to the General Assembly legislative session.
I think I would like to learn how to get more parents engaged in our district. I think that the district tries to do its best, but we can always do better as it relates to community engagement. So I want to learn more strategies on how to get the community more engaged.
Mine is, I'm a numbers person, and so I want to know where the dollars are coming in and where they're going out, and how we inform the community of how that's happening, because it's your tax dollars that we're using.
I'd like to know more about our partnerships and in relation to funding as well, and being transparent with the community about where those dollars are going.
And I'd like to learn more about transportation in our district. I've learned over the last several weeks that this is a gap that I'd like to work towards filling.
Thank you. Okay, another rapid response. And we'll start with Hassan and then move down and around. So remember, 15 seconds, okay? What letter grade would you give Rebuilding Stronger so far?
Not knowing a lot about Rebuilding Stronger other than what I've read in the news and not actually seeing the program in place, being part of the board, I would give it a B, and further evaluation would need to be done.
I would say it's probably not even a realistic question, because Rebuilding Stronger is a strategic plan that's still being implemented and won't be through the end of this year. We just started with the middle school the new junior highs or middle schools, if you will. I think that we need some more time. I think we need to finish this. I think we need to work on the next plan that will stabilize the district that comes after rebuilding stronger.
I think it's early as well. However, I would say if I gave a grade for implementation right now, I would give them a D, unfortunately, because the implementation is really key when we talk about shifting grade reconfiguration and disruption of students, moving into new buildings and new spaces and new staff.
I agree. I think it's too early to give an actual letter grade. We're still in the middle of actually rolling it out. I tell you that one of the greatest highlights for me visiting schools this school year is just seeing the smile and the excitement on the students' face as they're entering this new phase of having access to arts and music.
Yeah.
As being new to trying to be a part of this board, I've talked to a lot of teachers and students, and I've attended all of the board meetings currently. I'd give it an F.
And I also spoke to a lot of families concerning Rebuilding Stronger, and I would say that I actually did ask them what they would grade it currently, and they said an F for frustration. And it is frustrating to hear about buildings not being done with construction when school starts, and exit signs falling down and phones not working. Those are all part of safety for families and students. And as a parent, that's our number one concern for our kids, is to make sure they're in a safe space. And so that's what they would give it, as an F for frustration.
And our family, my family is a part of the Rebuilding Stronger restructure within our district, so we are living it every single day. So what I would say is, as far as the implementation, I would award it a needs improvement. And then as far as the overall restructure, I would name it as reaching. And I'm more than happy to understand what reaching means.
On paper, I give Rebuilding Stronger an A for its striving toward equity geographically, racially, socioeconomically. It's great on paper. In terms of implementation and alignment with actual resources and reality, I'd have to say at this moment it's premature, but I'd say about a C+, and I would like to see that improve.
Great, thank you. So this next one is for everyone but Gail and Kenneth. As a board member, you will work with colleagues that don't agree with your views on public education. How will you collaborate and foster an open dialogue with colleagues in the community? And for Gail and Kenneth, why should voters re-elect you to the board? How will you work with the community? So the order for this is going to be Alan, Ashley, Hassan, Carrie, Deandra, Alyssa, Gail, and Kenneth.
Well, I think one of the main reasons that I'm running is because we're not hearing enough voices from the community on the board currently. I think that there's an awful lot of 7-0 votes, and I'm not trying to be antagonistic, but that just tells me that people aren't asking the right questions or enough questions, and certainly 7 people can't always agree on the policies on the board. So something needs to change up there, and I hope that I can be that change.
So the question around, how would I work with others that have different opinions? I think that's a really healthy type of board that we do really need. We will come in with different experiences, different viewpoints, but I do think that it's important for us to really relationship build and talk about what are the values, because sometimes we can always go back to like the standard values. What are we here for? What's going to be best for kids? And sometimes we lose that in the process of relationship and adult relationships. And so I do believe that it's important for us to be able to hear from all different lenses, not just from community, but also when we hear different commissioners having different points of view. I think it's really healthy, but I do think that, of course, we need enough votes to pass anything along to make things happen for kids. But ultimately, we get to have those and hash out those conversations as well across the board, because if we're not in those boardrooms and really talking about what's the bottom line, what are we doing this for, and get to the real results for kids, then our district will stay in the state that it's in right now.
So as a board, you want diversity of thought. You don't want everybody to think the same. And with that, We need to have different ideas and be able to speak those freely, and I welcome all ideas to the table, but at the end of the day, we have to do the best plan that's going to help our kids have better literacy rates, that's going to have equity throughout the district, and that's going to provide the best outcomes for these kids in the long run, make them effective community members and all that. And the board, how it's made up, how we make those decisions, we should be able to have an ear for everything, but at the end of the day, it has to be a decision that is best for our children.
Is it me or Dion?
Carrie.
Thank you. So one of the things that I am running, and the reason I'm running is because it's important that the community is a part of what happens in the IPS district. And so my concern is that your voices are not being heard. My concern is that the parents' voices are not being heard. And so I will be that lens on the board because, again, I do not have children in the IPS system, but I have been a part of the IPS system. That when you're working with other people and you've been elected to be in the position, that you share the ideas of those electorate and those concerns of the electorate so that you are sure to ensure that the things that happen on the school board and for your students is happening. Not that someone's paying someone to be there and asking them to follow those kinds of rules and regulations, but that the people who are being serviced by the board. And that's why I would love to be your candidate at large.
So I believe as a school leader that we listen to parents in our my centers in early childhood. That's where we start. We start with the parents and we start with our community, and then as an organization, we build a culture. In our organization, it's teamwork. So we would do everything together for the sake of our children. And so as a commissioner, I would offer that same insight to the board. The school board is to create a culture for the board and state a vision for the board. And then again, every decision that we make, we lean into that vision and that culture that we set from the beginning.
And as a school board commissioner, it's my responsibility to go out into my district and to obtain the values of all of my constituents, all of our constituents. You know, I will come back to the rest of my fellow board members and identify all of those values that we all have and that we all share. And it's going to be our responsibility as a board to be able to lift up the top 2 or 3 values, and then those values need to turn into our district goals. We are all elected because if we all raised our hands in this space, we would all have multiple values that we want to see on behalf of our district. However, you all elect us, and it's our responsibility to identify what those are. So in order to be able to do that, we have to collaborate, and we have to be able to communicate with each other effectively. What is incredibly important to me is that we are communicating with nothing but facts, and that is what's most important.
Oh, Gail.
So the question for us was a little different. It was why re-elect, correct?
Yeah, I can. So why should voters re-elect you to the board, and how will you work with the community?
Okay. So in 2012, I was elected for the first time. And in 2012, it was a pivotal year of change for the landscape of education. We had some special interest groups come to town called Stand for Children, and now we have another one. It's called Rise. So as you listen to the landscape up here and who's endorsed by who, pay attention to that, because those are 2 special interest groups that have lots of money, and in fact, they spend billionaire money in order to get people elected to the board. I would like to be reelected because this time around, I'm a grassroots candidate. I'm representing teachers and a different set of interests. When I was elected the first time, parted ways with those those special interest groups after I decided to vote for the best interest of my constituents. They backed off from me, and I committed myself to transparency in the political process. I began to write a blog. That is something that I would continue to do now to keep voters informed of what's happening on the IPS board.
In full transparency, when I ran the first time, I wasn't prepared to lead on day one. Since being elected to the school board, I've had an opportunity to participate in 2 national fellowships specifically for school board members. I went to Georgetown University and got a certificate in education finance just to be better prepared to lead this district. If you want a commissioner that's going to be ready to serve on day one, that's energized, energetic, willing to show up for our students, show up for our schools, you will re-elect Kenneth Allen for IPS Board at Large. But most importantly, Commissioner Allen is not for sale. In the words of the great poet Bootsy, I'm independent.
Thank you all for answering our questions and staying on time. So now we're going to ask a few questions that were submitted from the audience. And so this first one, we'll start with Ashley, and then we'll loop our way back around. This will be one that you have 60 seconds for. So one of our audience members asked, how can the board help address chronic absenteeism?
That's a really great question. I think what you're going to hear me say, you're going to hear me say it a lot. I think it's important for us to have our policies ironed out in our goals and our strategic plans. So when we talk about chronic absenteeism, what are the practices that are in place that are really supporting schools who are able to close those gaps and those numbers? I've seen a lot of really amazing things in some amazing schools over the years, but one of the best things that I could really lift up is in Martindale-Brightwood, there is a school that literally mobilized the entire community. And so for those of you who are community school supporters, you're gonna love this. They mobilized community partners and community and said, we're gonna sit in this room, we're gonna call, we're gonna go and knock on their doors, similar to what we're doing for campaigns right now, right? Why not? Ultimately, what are the practices that are in place in order for the district to improve across all of their schools? As a commissioner, I won't be that person always on the ground, but how do we put policies in place to make sure that schools are really being intentional on really closing that gap and finding out why? Who's asking why are they not making it to school? Like, that's a really big thing, but that is something that we can put in place. We can have policies in place and really be intentional on closing those gaps. So absolutely.
One of the things I think we can do is share secrets. We are a district of choice. We have a lot of our partners that have done great as it relates to outreach and community engagement, so we can share strategies. I think the same energy and effort we use as a district for a referendum can be the same energy we use to find out where our students are, why they're not coming to school. And so I think it's going to take that type of grassroots effort and movement to really get engaged and get a handle on those absenteeisms.
Thank you for the question. One of the things, again, parents, we hear all this stuff about the commissioners. What is going on in our homes? What is actually happening in our communities? Why are we having students that are not coming to school? What is the issue in this home? We need to probably have more social workers, it sounds like, in our schools that are addressing some of these issues that not the teacher's supposed to address, nor this board. And so, again, it goes back to the funding from the General Assembly and from maybe the City County Council. We're going to have to look at other kinds of ways to look at this issue as we address it in each building too. And then that's a community as well, because each community will be different. There may be schools that don't have any students that are doing that, and then there may be students that have a lot of absenteeism. So it's an issue that, yes, we need to look at as a board, but we need to figure out how we help the schools resolve the issue. Thank you.
This came up when I was walking in our community, talking to families about why that I'm running for IPS School Board. And I was really surprised to hear that one mom was told that she was within walking distance to her school, her second grader, which was 7 blocks away from her house. And so I think sometimes we think it's a parent issue or a school issue when really it may be a district issue on transportation. And I know transportation is very complex, and so I won't get into that, but I do think it's, working with partners to see how we can get kids to school, and really learning from families, what is the reason we're not going to school, and working together on making solutions.
And we're all saying something very similar. We're all talking about wraparound services. It's essentially ensuring that students have more than one, grown up have more than one support that are wrapping their arms and that are wrapping services around them. In order to be able to do this successfully to address chronic absenteeism, our district needs to continue to engage in community partners. Dee said she wouldn't get too complicated with transportation, but I learned something this week that the district has over 1,000 route changes per week just due to housing instability. So I do agree with our my fellow colleagues in saying it's not just families sitting at home saying, I think I want to just stay home. Most of us parents are like, get to school. So I, again, want to ensure that we have wraparound services to address chronic absenteeism, ensuring that we are supporting our community partners, and again, being able to address those gaps in transportation.
So I believe as an educator that, I don't believe I know. Students don't come to school to take tests. They don't typically, some of them do. Some of them like math and English, okay, but they don't like the math and English tests. I think the more we can broaden our curriculum, get students reinvigorated into subjects like science, social studies, which have fallen by the wayside in our curriculum, by the way, because of this over-focus on the testable subjects. The more that we can get students engaged in the classroom. Beyond that, I think beyond the classroom, we need to think about how we are funding things like sports, the arts, after-school programming, and giving students opportunities to find out what they're passionate about. That's where they learn. They get to experiment and try things for free at school, right? And so we need to make sure we have budgeting for that. Also have had the privilege of working with full-service community schools, which wrap their arms around neighborhoods and families and bring resources in, food pantries, clothing pantries, mental health services, physical health services. We need to look at how are we meeting the needs of our students and families as well.
I think we need to evaluate our current transportation program for IPS. I know at one time IPS had partnered with Indigo. I think it was back in 2019. We may need to revisit that, get creative with churches in the community. We got a lot of church buses that sit vacant throughout the day. I think that could be a creative way to help get kids to school. We also need to make sure that they're coming to school and are motivated to come to school because they're interested. So we have to make the schooling an integral part to where they're excited about it. So first off, transportation. We have to make sure that's correct. We have to make, secondly, school exciting for the kids. And we need to bring in whatever resources to make sure that parents that aren't able to get their kiddos to the school are able to use other avenues to do that.
I would say probably a holistic look at all of this would be transformational community schools, where communities embrace the schools and schools build the community. This isn't a new model or anything, but I think we need to find efficiencies in transportation. I don't know that busing kids all the way across town just to pick a school is going to be the best thing for the environmental footprint, for getting kids to school. Some kids don't make it to school because of transportation issues, and they're too far away to resolve those things. I think that I'm a strong arts advocate because of this specific thing. In my witness at Arsenal Tech, I know we kept at least 6 kids in school that graduated because they had arts programming. I think sports is going to work the same. And I think to Gail's point about diversifying our academics in the day, I mean, there are kids that are going to come to school for history, and we don't offer that anymore. So.
Thank you. So we have another audience question, and we're going to start with Kenneth this time. How do you plan to partner more with parents?
Well, first and foremost, we have to make our opportunities to engage them a little bit more innovative. So that means we may have a board meeting on a Saturday. We may have a board meeting not on our traditional night, but we have to be very creative and innovative on making it very accessible for our parents and guardians so that they can actually get engaged. I think the challenge now, it is very hard to be engaged as a parent, particularly if you're a single parent or a single caregiver. So we have to be very innovative and creative and create solutions that makes it accessible for our parents and communities to get engaged.
Could you repeat the question, because I did not hear what you said?
Yeah, how do you plan to partner more with parents?
Thank you for the question. My master's degree was about parent engagement. So one of the things that we have to understand, and I keep bringing it back to that same point, is that parents are the most important asset to education. And if we are not engaging from the beginning, from pre-K through 12th grade with our parents, we're losing out on a very important aspect in our young people's lives. What the board needs to do is have board meetings, again, I think Mr. Allen said it well, on different days, at different times, and they have to be more open to making sure that if they don't get the information out to the parents, it goes out some kind of new we have all this technology, new kind of way. I was at the board meeting on the last Thursday, and they said something about the information goes out through the Indianapolis newspaper. Unless you get that, I think, online, it's very hard to get because I didn't know where the information was coming from. So it's very important that we engage the best we can with our parents, however we do it.
Yeah, I strongly believe in parents are our partners. And so I believe that we should encourage our administration to ensure that all of our schools have a community engagement, parent engagement plan, and also just be accessible. All my parents, and we serve about 150 currently, still have my cell phone number because we're dealing with their most precious gifts. I'm not advocating for that, anybody over here, to give out your cell phone number, but be accessible is really key for parents because they want to know the decision maker sometimes. They want to be able to just hear from you. And so I pride myself on being accessible to parents, and I encourage the district to do the same.
So hearing this question is having me identify that parent engagement across our district is not equitable, because as a parent of the district, the schools that my 3 daughters attend, the parent engagement there is going well. We are notified about literally everything, but then what, in a very good way. But what that tells me, this question tells me, is that there's an equity issue there. And that's something that I want to ensure that as commissioner, I'm identifying where those gaps are in the district. So that's something that I want to first be able to work on. I don't have an answer right now, but I know that as commissioner next year, I'll continue to engage with parents and ensuring that across the district that we're sharing best practices across the district so all of our schools are equitable.
There is an equity gap in parent engagement, and when there are equity gaps, that creates opportunities for predatory organizations to come in and masquerade as if they are doing some beneficial type of organizing and giving parents a voice. I would say that we as a district need to close our doors to Stand for Children as an organization. Thank you, they come in, they tell parents what to say, and they pay them money to come down and say scripts to the IPS school board commissioners. I lived that 12 years ago, and it's still happening to this day. We need to be mindful of that. We should not be paying parents to read scripts to affect policies. In terms of parent engagement, I think a more organic way to engage parents would be to strengthen our PTOs, our PTAs. I've been in those positions before, having served as a PTO president. That's one way. Let's get back to the bake sales and things and get away from the billionaires.
I think it's important that we look at the English as a second language. We have Haitian Creole kids that are here. We've got many different Latino kids that are coming into the district, and their ability to, and I've talked to parents that have said they receive communications not in their languages, and that's something that we got to look at. If that's a growing population in the district, we have to make sure that we are getting the information to them effectively, and that would be in the language that they speak, their native tongue. Also, we just need to have more community engagement, more parent-teacher interactions, more opportunities for parents to come in and volunteer at the schools. I know teachers, if we're at class sizes of 30 plus, and there's a mother or father that can come in and help that teacher out, I'm sure that would be greatly appreciated. And we also have to make sure that we are top of mind with the parents and how they interact with the principals, and they need to be accessible. So all that's important.
Well, I think better community engagement is really on an individual school basis. I don't think that there's a district-wide solution. I think that talks to the inequity issues. You know, I've been in several schools, and if you go to a CFI 2, the parents are already very engaged. You know, there's other schools that are going to have challenges with keeping parents engaged. I think that every school needs to have a parent liaison that's effective at their role with the group of parents and children that they're serving there. So I think that also kudos goes to the district, because I think that this year I've seen more activity in individual schools effectively communicating with their parents through emails, through social media, unlike I've ever witnessed before. I have a background in marketing. This is an issue that I've been harping on for all 12 years that I've been in it. When we were at Tech, we couldn't even have a community Facebook page. I mean, fortunately, we've advanced through the district for that, but I think there's tools available that could work around each individual school, and that's where parent engagement belongs.
So I have a unique experience here because I actually got engaged in education because my children were attending a letter F grade school for 6 years back in 2014. And I was on the cusp of a layoff at my job, and I realized that I never want my children to live through some of the experiences that I lived through. I went without some things, and I fought. And an organization, happens to be Stand for Children, came in, and they were teaching some workshops. And they were teaching some workshops to us parents because we're there fighting for our kids' lives. And that is the God's honest truth. You know, I sat there, and just to continue, it's, you know, I'm sitting there, and I remember going without, not knowing if I was going to be able to pay my bills. But Rafael Sanchez put this microphone in my face as I'm advocating for my kid's school. And he's like, well, why wouldn't you just send your kid to another school? And the truth of the matter is, I was considering it. But when I started realizing that just because I, as a black mother of 3 beautiful children, had never seen a win when we talk about systems, didn't mean I couldn't be the change, the pivotal change that we needed. And so we can talk about pushing out organizations, fine, but what do we learn from them? Because ultimately, I have also been able to see that, yes, IPS gets to grow when we talk about the parent engagement. How are you being intentional on the language? There's a lot of pieces that we get to talk about, but we really got to talk about the big picture.
Thank you. One more question from our audience before we get to closing statements, so you all are almost there. Thank you so much. For the students and community members who felt their relationship with the district was damaged by Rebuilding Stronger, how do you plan to rebuild trust in the district? And we will, I'm sorry, I didn't start with the candidate order, but we'll start with Carrie.
Again, I've been having a wonderful opportunity to talk to parents as I'm doing my phone banking, and I had a phone call, and I want to share this with you. It was a lady, and she cussed me out and hung up on me. So I said, oh, what was that about? And I'm real curious. I called her back. She picked up the phone, and I said, I do apologize for whatever's going on with you with IPS. And I said, but would you share with me what's happening? She said, I have a student who is going to the 9th grade, and he has to ride the bus. He will not go and stand on that bus stop with drunks and drug addicts and those kinds of, I mean, she just described what her community was like. So, and I was like, I do apologize. I said, so what is happening with the transportation? So this is what she told me. She said it was not until the day of school that they told me my son would have to ride the city bus. The day of school? I said, really? She said, yes. She said, we do not have a car at my house. I have to be at work at a certain time. And so.
Time.
Thank you.
Yes, I also speaking with parents, believe that we will definitely need to continue speaking to them and figuring out where their most concerns are, and then working alongside the administration to make sure we find solutions very quickly, so that our students feel safe at the bus stops, they feel safe in their schools, and everybody is at peace, and kids are there in school ready to learn.
One of the things that I valued most when I was a teacher is my ability to be able to differentiate. And what essentially that means is, you know, you have multiple kids in front of you, and you have to treat or serve one student this way and serve one student this way and serve one student that way. And I'm thinking about that within our district's restructure. Because as commissioners, yes, we need to be responsive, absolutely, but we also have to be preventative. And in order to be preventative, we have to continue to over-communicate. So that's the first thing I would want to be able to do, is to over-communicate with our families, but also don't lose sight of those families whose current experience with the restructure has gone well. That's what I meant by differentiate. Certainly not turning a blind eye to those families who these last several months have been nothing but frustration, but also ensuring that across the district as commissioners, we're taking that high-level view and saying, yes, we are able to over-communicate to these parents, focusing on those that are doing well.
Sorry.
And being clear.
So I agree with a lot of what candidate Impink just mentioned in terms of differentiation. I agree fully with the Rebuilding Stronger plan as it is on paper. It offers all 4 quadrants of our district an opportunity to have the same high-quality schools all over the district. When I was on the board in 2012 through 2016, one of my main concerns was that there was this uber-privileged corridor in our district where the schools were high-performing, and, you know, I was the squeaky wheel that was like, hey, we need to do something about this. And I think that as we implement and, you know, actualize Rebuilding Stronger, taking it from paper to reality, we're going to hit bumps in the road. But guess what? The beauty of this plan is that we no longer have that privileged corridor, right? So there's some people that aren't happy with the fact that things are changing. As you mentioned, and I agree with that, we need to be mindful of that. And so we are striving towards equity. We are striving towards making good school options available all over the district, and not everyone's going to be okay with that, and it's going to take a little time and resources to pull it off.
Change is not easy. There's been many plans that have come through IPS in the past, and we really can't afford to have another failed plan for IPS. So I think we have to get behind Rebuild, make it the best that it can be. Those parents that have had issues, we need to address those issues, alleviate them, champion the wins that be it maybe a few right now, but we're still early in the game on this. and just get behind this program and make it what it needs to be for a successful program for the children of IPS. We can't get caught up in, you know, what's not working and why didn't we do this. The plan is here. We need to be able to see it through, again, because if the plan fails, we're failing those kids, and we can't afford to do that.
Well, rebuilding stronger is what we have to work with and what we have to build on. You know, I was active in the process. I went to several meetings. I had input. I didn't get everything I wanted out of the plan, and nor did anybody else. This is what democracy in a democratic plan looks like. Over 2,000 public comments were made on that plan. And whether we should have 20,000 is a whole nother question, but that's what we have, and it's the most public input we have on anything that's guided this district through all this time. So I think we need to pay attention to that. I mean, a lot of parents want to stick with the K-8 program. We've had a middle school program in IPS before, historically. So this is what we're building off of, and I think that there are some good things about it. I think it's the most equitable plan that IPS has ever had, and it doesn't have a great history. We all know that. So I think that we build on that and we just make it a better plan. Through the end of this year, we're going to need a new strategic plan. So thank you.
So we have a plan. The plan is here. It's not changing. How do we make sure that it can be implemented successfully, right? And so we can hear from, you know, all of the folks parents and community that show up to school board meetings. Where I would like to have you nestle in on is who are the ones who are not showing up, that something is just happening to them. How are we going into the schools, being intentional, into the communities and around? Again, community school, I'm gonna read it like a drumbeat, y'all gonna get tired of me. But ultimately, how are you engaging the entire community around individual schools? What's the experience like? Like, it's not that you'll be able to make significant changes, but you definitely get to make sure that parents, students, and community get to be heard around every single school. How do we create a process where we are consistently doing that? Like, not just coming in and say, one time in a year, we're gonna ask you. But no. Right now, before the end of this year, we should have a gut check in every single one of these schools about what's the temperature, how are you feeling, how can we do better, and if we need baby, please conversations and improvement, we get to have that. And baby, please is when we go and say we're sorry because we messed up, because we get to be transparent.
Thank you.
Yes, is the plan, first of all, I supported the plan as a commissioner. Is the plan perfect? No. Have we made some mistakes in implementing it? Yes. Do we need to apologize as a board of commissioners and a district? Absolutely. But there is nothing, I will take this with me into my grave, than seeing the smile and the excitement on the young people as I visited schools who have benefited from the generosity of the taxpayers in this room, of all the wonderful offerings that these young people have. My niece just walked into the room, and I'm so excited, hopefully, that when she's eligible to enroll, she will make IPS her choice for school. So hi, Brooklyn.
Perfect. So now each candidate will have 30 seconds for their closing statements. It can be an opportunity to answer any questions that weren't asked of you. Again, let's really try to keep it to 30 seconds. We're going to start with Deandra.
Thank you for having me. I'm here because my parents asked me to be. I'm so excited and I believe that I'm ready to do what it takes to ensure that the kids that I'm bringing up will be transitioning to IPS school district at kindergarten, that they're entering great quality neighborhood schools. Our neighborhood school changed hands 3 operators, 3 different years, and that's just not justice. That's not the educational justice that we discuss and see and that our kids deserve. And so I'm here. I want to bring power back to the schools at the school level, build quality, great neighborhood schools, and ensure that all of our students are reading at grade level by accessing, yes, I see, but expanding access to pre-K as well.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've not done well with the order. My apologies.
Just go.
Let's go.
Thank you. So I'm running so that every student in our district has access to schools that meet their needs. As commissioner, for the next 4 years, I'm going to have a focused mindset on student outcomes, not adult inputs, but student outcomes. I want to invest in our students early by providing equitable funding across the district. I'm committed to working with parents, educators, and our community. I, again, want to be able to sit in the seat with a community-driven approach. So I ask for your vote on November 5th. I look forward to serving you over the next 4 years. You can get in touch with my campaign. My website is votealyssaandpink.ips.com. Thank you very much for having me here this evening.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Gail Cosby, again running for re-election to the board, having previously served 1 term. As a commissioner, I'll be bringing transparency to the political process. I'll continue to blog. I stay in contact with my constituents and the parents in my district by partnering with community organizations and doing listening sessions. I will do that again during this term. And I think that, you know, of all the people that we have on the board, and in the past 12 years since I've been gone, a lot of them have been elected by special interest groups, and that's not me. That's diversity of thought. GailCosby.com is my website. Thank you.
Hassan Rashid, District 2 candidate, and I've been endorsed by the current District 2 Commissioner, Anita Moore, and she sees in me what needs to be done to get the job taken care of for IPS students. I'm going to address the literacy rate. We're going to increase that. We're going to make the classroom safe for students, and we're going to make equity throughout the district a priority. Those will be my goals and my aims as I become the District 2 Commissioner. Thank you for your support. You can go see all of my background at voterashidforips.com. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alan Schoaf. I'm a 12-year resident of the Near East Side and active parent in IPS schools our whole time here. I'm interested in being a new voice because I think that the special interests that Gail references pretty much have total influence over the current board, and there's a lot of questions that aren't being asked. We need some more transparency, I think, around taxpayer issues, and I'm here to also engage the notion that arts supports all these things that kids need, that we need to keep them in school, we need to keep them engaged, and I think that arts supports every aspect. It's universal language for all kids. Alan Schoaf, thank you.
My name is Ashley Thomas, and I am running for IPS School District 1. I am really ready to, again, start this true community build where we listen to all voices, because building means that we won't always agree, but we get to be direct, we get to be respectful, and we get to be disruptive of the status quo, because it is not good enough for us to take any shorts about our children. And it's just really time for folks to have a strong leader like myself coming in, ready to work with others, and also ready to disrupt old ways, old thoughts. It's a movement, and when I move, you move. We move together, just like that.
Again, Kenneth Allen, have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the current Vice President of the Indianapolis Public School Board of Commissioners, running for re-election to continue the work. If you want a commissioner that's going to show up for schools, show up at the State House, show up for our scholars, be energized, show up for the meetings, show up at the State House, show up at the City County Council meetings to advocate for young people, make sure you vote Allen for IPS. You can find me on all media outlets, but most importantly, Kenneth Allen is not for sale. In the words of the great poet, Bootsy, Little Bootsy, I'm independent.
I am Carrie Harris, running for IPS School Board at large, and it's only 2 of us up here that are not being sold and haven't been sold. And so it's real important that you understand that you vote for someone who is in this for you, and that would be me. I'm the change agent. C, Carrie is. H, honest. Carrie is. A, authentic. Carrie is. N, nimble. Carrie is. G, grounded. Carrie is experienced. And all you have to do is go to Carrie Harris for IPS School Board at large and vote for me on November the 5th, and you'll see a change on the IPS School Board.
Thank you. Well, we've discussed a lot here tonight. Thank you so much. And if you in the audience didn't hear an answer or you would like to rewatch the forum, you can watch it on WFYI's YouTube page. You can also listen and read to more information about school board races across the county with voter guides for all the school districts in Marion County on each of our websites.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Bailey Schwartz. I am a Community Engagement Specialist for the Education Desk at WFYI Public Media. I just wanted to personally thank you all for attending and joining us tonight. And we want to personally thank Sydney and MJ for our moderators, and just a round of applause for all of our candidates as well. And a special thank you to all of you for submitting questions as well. Thank you for making sure that we're public media represented. And we hope tonight was informative and helpful. I do want to mention one more time our voter guide. It is available on our website, and there are some QR codes outside. If you're still unsure of who to vote for, what each candidate stands for, and what position they're running for actually does. And so if you're still unsure of that, feel free to read our voter guides at our website or back in the table. Today is the first day of early voting, so if you haven't planned out a voting method, please do that. And Election Day will be on November 5th. Have a great night and get home safe. Thank you.
Thank you.